a 10-minute drive down the road, pick one up and come back. That's as quick as I could do it, which would probably be half an hour, right? Mm-hmm. I just can't find the charger for my laptop. I don't know. I'm so pernickety with absolutely everything, and I just don't know why. But anyway, my friend...
Organised chaos is what my favourite painter used to call it. Francis Bacon, he called his work deeply organised chaos, and his studio as well.
Mate, I'll show you afterwards. For the record, I'll show you after. Do you know what? I swear to you, I didn't even know that. And I've said to B, my desk looks messy, but it's organised chaos. Like, no one can see it, but it's a mess. But it's not.
If my webcam wasn't attached to me Mac, I would spin it around and give you an insight into my world, because it's a zoo, it's a photo studio, it's a modelling workshop.
Oh, yeah.
It's a botanical garden. It's
yeah, but Ian, I know for a fact, if and when I see that, I will be like, I get it, and I'm sure you the same. Even to the point that I hate wires. I hate them so much that there's a wire presence, just because it annoys me, and I have to learn to.
We live in an age where there's less of them now.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, yeah, what she said was, not a constructive criticism. What she actually said was her favourite was Walk With My Father, and then what she also said was the best bit about these podcasts, and I'm going actually against this just for the beginning of this podcast, and I will explain that as well, but essentially what she said was it's very raw and very not unscripted, she didn't say that, but like that kind of thing, right? So she was basically saying it's really great that you're just kind of quite candid about things, like it doesn't sound scripted, and it's because it's not, you know. No. And actually the thing, I have you listened to Walk With My Father?
Yes.
We're like walking outside and
yeah. If there's more than one of them, I've only heard one.
For now, it's only one.
Yes, I haven't.
Definitely that will be like a little sub series, 100%, because it was just amazing. Like, I found out stuff that I didn't know. But I said to her, it's an hour long. And I said to her, almost to the second, I was like, it was about 4 minutes in, about 4.5 minutes in, right, is when, and I do it now, even though, and I'll be honest, like, this is just my technique. Like, I don't plan it, I turn the thing on, we talk, that's it. But I'm super aware that I'm not swearing, so I've said bloody already, I know that. But I'm switched on to absolutely everything you're saying, I know exactly what you're saying, and that's why I can pick back up where, if we get muddled, right?
I don't doubt it.
So
Your dad podcast was fascinating, because my dad was never officially diagnosed as far as I'm concerned, but he had bipolar disorder, because the vast majority of the time he was a very humble, very peaceful, very calm, jovial, friendly, helpful, polite guy. Every few years, his behaviour would get really erratic. Now, before he died, he actually died from a heart condition. He died in a caravan, which he technically stolen with a bouncy check, because his finances were all over the place. The police were looking for him. I had undercover police come round to look for him at mine, because he used my address as where he was living, and he wasn't living with me. It tried to a couple of times, but his behaviour was just so erratic and upsetting. I just couldn't cope with it. I was depressed at the time, which didn't help. He got taken to court for harassment, for harassing what was his long-term girlfriend, who was an awful person, really. Didn't help. They had this unhealthy off-and-on relationship for decades, which was horrible. So he was taken to court for harassment by her and her daughter, who's pretty much my stepdaughter, although not technically, because there was no marriage. And it was horrific. He was in court acting up. The prosecution was a doddery old lawyer who kept making mistakes. Now, had my dad not been acting up, he probably would have walked, probably would have got away scot-free. But he was acting obnoxious in court, had his hands in his pocket, and the judge says, is there any particular reason why you've got your hands in your pocket? And my dad snapped back, because I'm in pain, and it stops the pain. Now, he had cellulitis, in his legs, which was really quite serious, actually. His employer, which was the post office, kind of used that to try and shuffle him off. But his mental health, you really get to know a lot about someone when you go through their stuff after they've died, because his mental health was a big issue. My almost stepsister's husband had friends in the post office and said, well, he turned up for a tribunal one time, and before anything really started, he started shouting at the judge, which was just not my dad the vast majority of the time. So I'm absolutely certain that he had bipolar disorder too. And it really cost him, because apparently what happened was when I was 4, my mum couldn't take it. And she said, look, John, you got some problems. I think it's important to address those problems. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take the boys and we're going to be out of here. And that's exactly what happened, because he was in complete denial. I was 4 the day that we moved out, and I remember it distinctly. I didn't have an appreciation for all the ins and outs and everything that was going on. I had little instances that I remember of them arguing, and I would turn up and say something on the lines of stop arguing, and they would say, oh, no, we're not arguing. But that's just what adults sometimes do. But I freak family members out sometimes by remembering things from my very early years, 2, 3, 4 years old. And they said, you can't possibly remember that. You're obviously just looking at photos and they're triggering. And I said, and then I'll tell them something else. And they'll say, oh, F, you really do remember that. I didn't realise.
Oh, mate, are you all right?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fine.
No, because obviously that's quite heavy. By anyone.
No, listen, I really don't mind talking about pretty much everything. Not quite everything, but pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I don't talk about anything when I'm depressed. And that's not just things about my bipolar. That's anything. Because I struggle to socialise and make coherent thoughts and to verbalise things properly. So it's an absolute joy to be able to be as articulate as I can be now, but I can't take it for granted because it's not going to last forever.
No, that's not true. I don't believe that's true.
No, it is though.
No, I think that's what I'm working at. You know, that's what I'm working at, for people to.
I've been doing this longer than you.
No, yeah, that's very true. That's very, very true. And I haven't been in recovery or whatever you want to call this state for that long, but I'm putting a lot of things into place. I want to ask a couple of things about that, if that's all right. So, interestingly, from a neuroscience point of view, from someone I've already mentioned, she says the same thing, and I say the same thing as you, because so again, like, I don't need to mention names, because if this person's listening, then they know who they are, right?
That's understandable.
But if I was to say that. This person's so important to me that him and all of his family are actually tattooed on my body, then they all know who they are, right? Because I showed him, the guy I'm talking about, I told him I was going to do it, did it, and then showed him, right? So...
Did he react?
I literally remember, and B will tell me I'm wrong, but I literally remember him being walked into my kitchen, the kitchen that my mum still lives in. She lives in more than just the kitchen, by the way, and she does live in a bedroom. She sleeps in a bedroom, she eats in the dining room, and, you know, whatever. She actually eats she probably eats more on the sofa, actually, to be fair. But anyway, sorry, Mum, but, you know. But essentially, like, I remember him being walked in a carrier into onto the kitchen floor, and there's no I'm sure there's a picture of that, right? But if I was then to say this, okay, and I very rarely say this out loud, and I need to think about whether I'm even going to say it. Yeah, no, of course I'm going to say it, right? Of course, by all of my own definitions, and for the fact that I love that family intensely, and vice versa. He was adopted, right? And I remember saying to him at a very young age, do you miss your mum? he couldn't even talk, right? And then I was walked off to the stairs and spoken to by one of my parents, of which I can't remember, and they said, you can't talk to him about that because he might not even know about it yet. That you don't know that from a picture. You just don't. And
no, you don't.
Why would I know that detail? And for the record, like, it's not hidden, by the way. I'm not telling anyone, I'm not telling the world something that that family and all of the people that love them don't already know, okay? And if it has offended any of those people, which I know it hasn't, and I know at least one of them is definitely listening, then that, like, I am sorry, and you know I'm sorry, but I know that you won't need me to apologise. But that's the situation, and it's for this, and they're fully supportive of this, and I know it's not offensive because it's a fact. But I know that obviously the adoption can be a difficult thing for a lot of people, and we don't need to go into that because it's, you know. But the point is that's essentially what I'm saying is like the whole memory thing is amazing, and that's why, like, we're so similar. And yes, you've had this situation longer, but I genuinely believe that if I put the right steps in place, and if I was to even follow that up by saying I haven't done for the past, not just day, for the past 6 weeks, I've been trying, but I haven't. So much so to the point that I've literally signed up to see the best therapist that I know, and we're having our first session tomorrow because I have an overriding issue with anger and aggression, right?
Okay.
That's a fact. Literally got off the phone to AXA before I got in the thing here to get because I'm insured, which I'm fortunate enough to have and whatever. But that's the situation, right? I've been managing my bipolarity for the last 6 weeks. And for the record, to tell you and anyone else that doesn't know, the last 6 weeks have been harder than the 6 weeks when I was suicidal for 80% of every day. But I just haven't even allowed myself to know that, right? Everyone else is sitting there going, you're still ill, mate. You've got a problem. And I nearly swore there, but I didn't because I'm very professional, Ian, right? But that's the point. So many people, like, as we said, what did you use the phrase? I was, like, binning off my mates, and you said, what's your definition?
Sorry, what definition of what?
So I was saying that I've had to release some of my friends from my life.
I flush people.
Flush people, that was it.
You see, I have to be very careful because it's in my nature to take risks at times. Now, not all risks are bad by any means. I am more prone to confrontational behaviour when my mind is racing. Now, it's something that I'm still working on because personally, I never lose my temper. I can count the times I've shouted at someone in anger in the last 20 years on one hand.
Yeah, and for the record,
two of those occasions, it was the same person as well.
Yeah, well, that in my opinion, that's their fault, not yours. And, like, for the record, if people can't hear this, and I've spoken to Ian either side of both, this is the second podcast now, on either side, I know that you're a very calm person, and that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. It actually doesn't. For any human to say they haven't lost their rag for 20 years, I can see that. Like,
something one of my first counsellors said, and to be honest, he wasn't very good at all in hindsight, but he said to me, are you aware that you're a big guy? I mean, I'm 6'4", I've got Dutch relations. I think I've inherited the Dutch genes because my relations in Holland, some of them are even taller than me and very blonde, very fair, blue-eyed, Aryan looking. It's not something that I think about, really. Some people who are tall are almost embarrassed by it and will walk almost hunched because they're ultra aware of their size. It doesn't occur to me until someone says something like, what's the air like up there, which is hilarious and unique.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. To be perfectly honest, with someone with a brain like yours, and I would say with the majority of bipolar people, we are hypersensitive, and that doesn't.
Can be.